TV mother Agnes Moorhead took in a foster child, Sean, in 1952. She doted on him, but when she died, one line in her will revealed the twisted truth. Agnes was born as Agnes Robertson Moorhead on December 6, 1900. Her parents were Presbyterian clergyman John Henderson Moorhead and singer Mary Moorhead. Her mother was 17 when she was born, and being a former performer herself, she encouraged her children's creativity and imagination. Her mother wouldn't be the only one with a passion for the arts. Even from a young age, the stage called to Agnes Moorhead. The first performance she ever did was at the age of 3. Because her family's ties to the church, she spoke the Lord's Prayer during her father's sermon. This would only be the start of both her time on stage and her dedication to her spirituality, though each would have their own dark side. When her family moved to St. Louis, Missouri, Agnes's passion for acting grew even stronger. Luckily, she had a supportive parent in her mother who would ask her, "Who are you today, Agnes?" She and her younger sister would often play act together, even coming to the dinner table in character, much to the amusement of their parents. Her older sister Ruth would be a huge supporter of Agnes. Her father, on the other hand, was the disciplinarian, and some of his punishments were downright brutal. Amusing her father with her play acting doesn't mean Agnes Moorhead was without punishment. Indeed, her father reprimanded her for her childhood shenanigans. When she had done something bad, her father would sit her on a stack of encyclopedias and force her to memorize a psalm. There I sat until I could recite it. It was a wonderful memory training, and it made me think twice before I do something wrong again. Thankfully, her restrictive household didn't stop her from chasing everything she wanted. Agnes Moorhead was dedicated to her education as much as she was to acting and performing. In 1923, she graduated from Muskingum College in New Concord, Ohio. While attending classes for her biology major, she found time to act in college plays. Later, she earned a master's degree in English and public speaking while teaching public school. Agnes was not short on professional ambition. Unfortunately, luck still played a part in her artistic success, and she had to fight hard before it struck. After graduating, she gave her acting and singing the old college try. Agnes auditioned and was cast as an understudy and company in a number of Broadway titles like Scarlet Pages, All the King's Horses, and Soldiers and Women. Agnes Moorhead acted infrequently in stage plays, though she was living the stereotypical struggling artist's life. Poverty hit her particularly hard. At one point, she went 4 days without eating because she couldn't afford food. Her major break came when a radio station hired her. Sometimes she appeared on multiple programs in a day, which she says was great vocal training. It wasn't an easy time for her, but it laid the groundwork for her future success. In 1930, Agnes made a connection she couldn't shake. She married a fellow actor, John Griffith Lee, on June 5th. She kept the details of their relationship quiet, often staying out of the public eye together. Yet the information that did come out was shocking, to say the least. John wasn't as successful an actor as Agnes, which meant he sought other ways to make a living. During their marriage, John registered to fight in World War II. Their relationship was fraught with tension around Agnes's success, and John found it hard to fight his resentment. As a result, he dealt her a shocking insult. John once reductively referred to her as his meal ticket. This wasn't the only time that her career would influence her personal relationships. Despite their problems, the pair lasted for 2 decades before divorcing on June 11, 1952. Agnes's work kept her away from her husband for a lot of their relationship, but there were reports that she was always keen to get back to him and their family farm. They had fostered a young boy, Sean Lee, a year before they split. As we'll see, Agnes had other things on her mind than being a mother to a child. In the 1920s, a chance meeting with a young boy would change Agnes's life forever. She first met Orson Welles when he was just 7 years old, and over a decade later, in 1937, she became an early contributor to his independent theater company, Mercury Players. This would be a major boon in her favor as her relationship with Orson continued throughout her career. His work on his first major film, Citizen Kane, brought Agnes's success by his side. Citizen Kane brought Agnes's name into the film realm and showed her abilities as a performer. She was ecstatic to be able to star in Orson's second film, The Magnificent Ambitions, which earned her a New York Film Critics Award and an Oscar nomination, and this was just the start of her screen appearances. In 1954, 2 years after divorcing John Griffith Lee, Agnes married actor Robert Gist. But there was a scandalous twist to their love story. Robert was 17 years younger than her, and rumors about his unfaithful behavior were common in Hollywood. Inevitably, this matchup didn't last very long. They stayed together for only 4 years until they divorced in 1958. Agnes didn't have another important long-term relationship after this, something that was potentially related to the questions surrounding her sexuality. Agnes's career continued growing and gaining more and more traction thanks to her immense work ethic. She starred in several different productions and played side characters and others, and through the 50s and 60s, she made many film appearances. One of the films she was in was called The Conqueror, and being on set would have dire consequences for everyone present. Filming took place in Utah, in a location surrounded by covert government nuclear test sites. The consequences were devastating. 220 cast and crew participated in the filming of The Conqueror, and almost half of them were diagnosed with a form of cancer during their lifetime. Agnes's mother believed that working on this film is what destroyed Agnes in the end. But more on that later. Agnes Moorhead got her major TV break in 1964 with the beloved series Bewitched, but her road to the role was on the unconventional side. Initially, she rejected the role of Endora, the main character's loathsome mother who hated non-magical humans, but one surprising event changed her mind. After rejecting the role of Endora, Agnes thought that was the end of the story regarding Bewitched, but a chance encounter with the lead, Elizabeth Montgomery, brought doubt to her mind. They ran into each other at a department store, and Elizabeth asked Agnes in person if she would join the cast. Even if Agnes might have lived to regret it, who could say no to that sort of personalized invitation? Agnes signed up for what she expected to be a short-lived project and assumed that the series wouldn't last longer than 1 season. Well, she was in for a surprise. The series was on the air for almost a decade. Her character, Endora, was what launched her fully into the mainstream, with her name and face appearing in 8 of every 12 episodes. But she had some surprising thoughts on the series. Agnes Moorhead thought very little of Bewitched. She didn't like playing a witch, and she thought the writing was trite, calling the scripts hack. Not only that, but she felt the success of the show entangled her irreparably with the role of Endora. Once she had said yes to the role, there was no more backing out after the first episode aired. Even after being awarded 6 Emmys, Agnes wasn't content with her career being reduced to one breakout role, especially since people started to recognize her as a witch. I've been in movies and played theater from coast to coast, so I was quite well known before Bewitched, and I don't want to be identified as the witch. Her stance on the series wouldn't change until her last moments. Her relationship with the other lead actors in the series were polar opposites. With Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Endora's daughter, the relationship was lovely, and Agnes even said she was fond of her. But with Dick York, who played Endora's son-in-law, there was obvious tension. He even went so far as to call Agnes a tough old bird, and that wasn't the only contentious part of her professional conduct. One part of Agnes's life that was heavily commented on in her career was her sexuality. The studios she worked for maintained a pristine image of her, depicting her as an ideal mother and wife. But despite this, there was still a lot of curiosity about her preferences. Rumors eventually spread that she was a lesbian, and they didn't stop there. Paul Lynde, A fellow actor on Bewitched seemed to know a lot about Agnes's relationships, and he made an utterly shocking claim. He said that Agnes and Debbie Reynolds were in a romantic relationship, which Debbie would later deny. But there was an interesting turn of events that led to even more suspicion around Agnes and Debbie's relationship. Debbie's ex-husband, Eddie Fisher, said he was going to write about her and Agnes' friendship in the autobiography he was working on. The argument stands that if the women's relationship was merely platonic, there wouldn't be anything to worry about. But Debbie pressured him with legal action should he expose the details of their relationship. That wasn't the only evidence for Agnes's supposed lesbianism. According to Paul, Agnes Moorhead had many intimate lady friends in her early career before she became a bit puritanical in how she behaved. Supposedly, it was a well-kept secret by the industry. Not only that, but Paul alleges that she made a very surprising claim during a fight with one of her husbands. Apparently, after catching her husband cheating on her, Agnes yelled at him and said if he could mingle with women outside of their relationship, she could too. Rumors from Paul are difficult to substantiate, though, as he was known to spread gossip and unfounded rumors. Strangely, many of his comments hold a lot of water. When writer Bose Hadley questioned Agnes about her sexuality in 1973, she was very coy and evasive in her answers. Bose grouped her alongside many other actors who had participated in non-heterosexual relationships, and her response was, "Yes, you'd love to put me in their excellent company, even if I don't belong in the same category." In some cases, denying or evading the truth can be even more telling than a confession. Remember her foster son, Sean? Partway through filming for Bewitched, Sean finished high school. Sean left home as soon as he graduated. His goal was to experience life out of his foster mother's smothering embrace and away from her restrictive rules. There was so much of the world for him to see, and so many ways of life he could explore. Unfortunately, none of them included Agnes Moorhead, and his decision had a chilling finality to it. When he left, that was the last time she ever saw her foster son, even during one of the most important moments of her life. By the time Bewitched wrapped, Agnes's health was worsening. But that didn't stop her from working hard, putting out several films and going on a Broadway tour. She even took a stab at voice acting and voiced Goose in Charlotte's Web. Little did she know these would be some of her final years in the acting scene. It was 1973 when Agnes's health took a turn for the worse. At the time, she was working on the Broadway adaptation of Gigi, in which she played Aunt Alicia. Acting in musicals is physically demanding, and she participated in several musical numbers. Then she became very sick, to the point where they had to replace her in the production. Agnes tried hard to work through the illness, but this sickness wasn't something she could easily recover from, regardless of how hard she tried to fend it off. That's when she got a devastating diagnosis. Agnes was suffering from uterine cancer that had spread to her lungs. This added her case to the rapidly increasing statistics of the Conqueror's cast and crew who faced cancer diagnoses. According to her friend Debbie Reynolds, Agnes said she would survive and that she left her fate in God's hands. After fighting the disease in the privacy of the Mayo Clinic Hospital in Rochester, Minnesota, Agnes Moorhead succumbed to her cancer on April 30th, 1974, at the age of 73. Tragically, her mother outlived her, and Agnes bequeathed all her jewelry and clothing to her, but the matters of her will went even further than that. Agnes willed $25,000 to Muskingum College, along with requests to fund at least one scholarship in her name. Half of her manuscripts went to this college, and she left the other half to the University of Wisconsin. She left her family's farm and her comprehensive collection of Bibles and biblical materials to John Brown University. Despite all these posthumous appointments, one name was conspicuously left out of her will. Agnes Moorhead hadn't seen her foster son since he left after high school. When Agnes' friend Debbie Reynolds asked if she could look for Sean as Agnes was struggling with her cancer, Agnes said no. She claimed anything to do with Sean would only upset her. Because of this, he wasn't at the hospital when her cancer took her. Not only that, but she left him nothing in her will. She claimed she didn't have any children, nor a spouse, alive or past. With this, Sean's name passed into obscurity, alongside his role in Agnes' life. Everything she left went to the few people around her and the previously mentioned organizations. Agnes' friends had many kind things to say about the actress, though some acknowledged her occasional difficult nature. Regarding her relationship with Sean, Lucille Ball said she tried to be a good mother to her adopted son, but she could be too stifling as a parent. Despite this, Agnes continued to express a sort of mentorship role to those around her. Agnes's early life followed her throughout her career. One of these things was her love for teaching, particularly regarding helping young actors hone their craft. According to her friend, producer Paul Gregory, she ran a school for many years out of her home teaching drama. Once a teacher, always a teacher. She will forever be known as Endora from the beloved series Bewitched, regardless of how she felt about being known as a witch. The role has immortalized her entire filmography and brought her name to new generations of audiences. Though she has been lost, she has not been forgotten.